Well, guys, here we are. We made it to episode 50. And we're on the boat! Well, it's a ferry, technically. Finton's right. Oh, man, it's hard to believe we've all managed to get tickets to Starlight Cove. Everyone be sure to thank Mary Ellen for setting this up for us. I'll have plenty of time to thank her, seeing as how I'm staying. Oh, you're moving to Starlight Cove? Yes! I've already started browsing apartments. Even with your wretched mind, surely you must see the appeal of this wondrous place. Okay, first of all, my mind isn't wretched. Just wait until the next chapter, Finton, before you decide to pack your bags. I don't have to listen to this. There's plenty of ferry to explore. Ugh, fine. So, what's everyone gonna do when they get to Starlight Cove?
We want to see the Mr. Gene Woods. We're going to get lost.
Why do you sound excited about getting lost?
Because then we'll find the precious.
Okay. Interesting logic. What about you, Arnold? I'm going to have tea with the Queen Ages. They're my heroes! Okay, nice. Announcers, what about you? Oh, we're going shopping. Yeah, we brought a whole suitcase just for souvenirs. Those gift shops won't see us coming. I'm going to find the tree that bleeds. Oh, nice, Finton. Yeah, I had a character in that story. I know! I'm going to make the tree bleed and pretend it's you. Wow. Okay, Finton. Hey, folks. How's the ride so far? Oh, hey there. The ride's great. Any questions about Starlight Cove? I've been here my whole life. Yes. Actually, I have a question. Do you by chance have Ubers on this island? Sorry. My friend here just discovered Ubers exist, and he's been using it to expand his horizons. I also quite enjoy being chauffeured. No Ubers here. But my dad, Otis, does have a taxi service you can use. He's got plenty of stories to tell, so he'll keep you entertained the whole ride. Oh my, a chauffeur and storyteller. This is going to be quite the vacation. I'm going to gain so much weight consuming stories. Sorry, long story. Well, not really. He eats stories, that's the whole joke. Anyway, I gotta work on the podcast before we arrive, but it was nice meeting you, and thanks for taking the ferry here with us to Starlight Cove. Oh, you're that celebrity I've been hearing about. Bradley, right? I just started listening to your show, the Savers Draft Podcast. I'm sorry, did you say celebrity? Haha, sure did. Everyone in Starlight Cove knows who you are. According to Happy Nielsen, you're the Emperor Substack. Ha! I knew I loved this place. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 50 of the Saved Us Draft podcast, and the first episode of 2026. It is mind-boggling that we are here. I don't think I've ever done 50 of anything before in my life, besides stories, but even then, nothing that was part of a series like this. Jokes aside, thank you so much for being here, and for supporting this show all the way through 2025. We're starting off 2026 with an incredible episode as well. This week's guest is someone that I met right after I joined Substack back in January of 2025, and it turns out that she and I started on the exact same day. That's right, folks. Later in this very episode, I will be sitting down with the creator of Starlight Cove and the winner of the First Indulgence Challenge, Mary Ellen Brady. She's never done an interview before, but trust me when I say you won't be able to tell. It's a fantastic conversation that you won't want to miss. But first, we'll start with a look at this week's shoutouts, our Wandering Prompt winner, the Power of Prompt stories from this week, some writing discussion, and of course, our indie release radar for the first week of January 2026. It's a packed episode as always. And of course, I'd like to do a quick shout out for this week's Community Spotlight, as I'm now calling it. So this week, I'm going to share a little about a recent guest on the show who also launched a Kickstarter for his novel this past week. This week's Community Spotlight is Connor Mancuso. Connor is a writer of cosmic horror, best known for his incredible performance in The First Indulgence. This writer came out of nowhere and rose up the ranks. He was in first place for several weeks as well. He just crossed 400 subscribers, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. In 2026, Connor is launching the first issue of a brand new horror literary magazine called The Oblivion Index. And as I mentioned, he recently opened a Kickstarter for his upcoming novel, The Loom and the Maw. I was a beta reader for the current draft of the book, and it is coming along very, very nicely. So, if you'd like to show your support, I'll drop a link to that Kickstarter in the show notes. A huge thank you to Connor for being a part of this community and for showing up for his fellow writers every single day. An awesome person that I am deeply proud to call my friend. All right, that's housekeeping sorted for this week, so let's dive into this week's shoutouts right after a quick word from a local Starlight Cove sponsor. Today's episode of the Saved as Draft podcast is brought to you by Merriweather Taxi.
Hey there, folks. My name is Otis Merriweather, and this beautiful piece of machinery here is Janine. Say hi, Janine. Haha, that's a good one. Together, Janine and I run Merriweather Taxi, right here in Starlight Cove. If you need a ride or a good story, we've got you covered. Hello, I'm looking for an Uber. I wish to be chauffeured to an as-of-yet undecided location. I'm told you have stories on offer as well. I'm quite famished.
Oh, hey, I could also use a ride. I can't seem to get an Uber or a Lyft here.
Well, hello, my friends. You won't find any Ubers or Lyfts here in Starlight Cove, but Janine and I can certainly help you out.
I mean, that works for me. You seem way more trusty than like 90% of Uber drivers I've had.
Yes, I agree. When is your availability, my friend? I'm quite indecisive when it comes to these things, so I may spontaneously request transportation at all hours of the day or night.
Yeah, actually, I need a ride to Soulmates. They're having a New Year's shoe sale. Since I know where I want to go, can I get a ride first?
Now, don't worry, my friends. Janine and I will be ready when you are. Doesn't matter if we're already transporting another customer. We're always ready to help folks get where they need to go. I see. Follow-up question for you. How is it physically possible to transport multiple customers at once? There are only two of you. Exactly what Janine said. Don't worry about it. Starlight Cove is a magical place. Let's leave it at that. Now, sit back, relax, and let Janine and I take you where you need to go.
Planning a visit to Starlight Cove? Leave the driving to Otis and Janine. Book your ride with Merriweather Taxi today. And we're back. Every week on Tuesdays, I post a podcast shoutouts thread in my subscriber chat. I pick 5 links at random to feature here on the show. My friend Mina Howell also hosts a similar thread each week for her Penny Dreadfuls podcast. Together, we combine the links from the 2 threads each week to choose stories for features on our respective podcast shows. So, keep an eye out on Tuesdays each week for a chance to get your work featured. For now, let's dive into this week's shoutouts. Our first shoutout this week is The Great Exchange by Asterion. This was a really fun story because it places you right into the world without much explanation, but it gives you plenty of hints as it goes on. It begins with a conversation between a few characters about what they do for work, and right away you can tell there's more to our protagonist than meets the eye. Their dialogue is just slightly off, and it creates this excellent sense of intrigue. I was really curious about where it was all going. And the reveal is really cool too. I love the way it plays into various aspects of mythology and classic fairy tales and folklore. That's all I'll say, but if you like stories that present a mystery and leave you with a fun revelation, you'll enjoy this one for sure. Here's an excerpt. "What was your old job?" Henry asked me. "I got people to where they needed to be," I said simply. "What, like an Uber driver?" said Henry. "Something like that," I said. "But I was paid less. Much less." "So you left that job because you wanted better pay?" "Oh, I didn't leave because of the pay. If I'm being honest, my wage was never really a priority to me." Then, when Henry scoffed, I thought better of my answer. To be clear, the money did matter to me, but the point of being paid was always more about, well, the acknowledgement of it all. "Acknowledgement?" Henry repeated. "Acknowledgement of what?" "My good service." Great stuff from Asterion, a very fun read, be sure to check that one out. Our second shout out this week is The Light Traveler's Child by Moira D. Kenny. This one is a limited fantasy series showcasing one of the author's prior novels, which is really cool. This one was originally written during a NaNoWriMo in 2010 and actually passed 50k words before the end of the month. Really impressive work. The author here describes the story as one that circles themes of family, connection, identity, and otherness. In this post, we get a look at the prologue, which opens on a horrifying and gruesome scene. It's the aftermath of a battle, and one that took many, many lives. The imagery on display here is chilling. You can feel the weight of what's happened in the dialogue. The emotion in general really comes through in this piece. I was really immediately pulled into the world, and I felt the weight of what had happened there right away. Here's an excerpt to give you an idea of how good this writing style is. "They're all dead." Jonas glanced at the man standing above him, then down at mud beneath his feet. He did not look again at the broken girl half buried in the mire. Somewhere hidden in the muck behind her were the bodies of her brother and parents, broken and mangled like Alyssa's. He had been looking forward to having them as neighbors, especially the little girl he'd grown fond of in the last weeks of travel, 6 years old and hardly afraid of anything. Even the scraping things moving every night in the darkness around them hadn't frightened her. Jonas stood and scanned the quiet woods. Nothing moved now, not even a bird. The only sound came from the remnants of the rain dripping from the elms and black gums through the catbrier and other underbrush. The woods seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for Jonas's next move. Positively chilling. Great work there, and wonderful atmosphere in that excerpt. Be sure to check the show notes for a link to all of these if you're interested in checking them out. Our third shout out this week is The Aswang, The Neighbor with the Upside Down Eyes by the Blasphemous Herald. I don't know what's cooler, that title or the author's handle. This piece features a music pairing right up front as well, and it's a really good track. The post itself covers several different sections regarding the Aswang, which is a shape-shifting vampire from Filipino mythology. We get an overview of the folklore surrounding it, some analysis, and more across the post. It's really comprehensive, and honestly, I hadn't heard about this legend before, so I found it really fascinating. Here's an excerpt to give you an idea of what's in store. The Aswang is a shape-shifting vampire from Filipino mythology, a creature that dwells within human society but rises to consume the life force of the unwary. While descriptions vary, the essentials remain. The Mimic. They are experts in human behavior, hiding as quiet neighbors by day. The Inverse Reflection. The definitive source of truth. If you look into their eyes, your reflection appears inverted. Shapeshifting. They manifest as dogs, pigs, or cats, vessels of skin used to move through the streets undetected. The Proboscis. A thread-like tongue capable of draining victims of their life force while they sleep. The Aswang isn't a demon in the Western sense. It's obsession given flesh. It doesn't want gold, it wants you. And that want is so vast that it threatens the very fabric of the community. Insanely cool, really awesome post. I'm going to subscribe to the Blasphemous Herald right now, and you should too. Find a link to this piece as well in the show notes. Our fourth shout-out this week is the, mostly, True Adventures of Harold the Christmas Mouse by Jennifer Jorgensen. This piece gives us a glimpse into a fun memory from Jennifer's past, which involves a mouse that was rescued by her stepmother during the holidays. It was being tormented by a neighborhood cat, so they brought the mouse inside, and before long, Harold the mouse became a member of the family. He lived in an empty bathtub and played with the house's cats, though I'm not sure Harold would have seen it as playing. Talk about going from the frying pan and into the oven. Harold eventually makes a great escape, but this is a super fun and charming story from Jennifer that proves once more that she can keep me glued to the screen regardless of the story's genre or topic. That's the power of a great storyteller. I was quite invested in this tale of a little field mouse. Here's an excerpt. She didn't have a cage or anything appropriate for something as small as a mouse. At some point during this process, she decided the mouse would make a great pet for her cats. So she placed it gently in the bathtub, in my bathroom of course, tied the shower curtain back so it couldn't climb out, and brought our Siamese Cho-Cho into the room. While she and my three sisters watched, the gladiatorial games began. Cho-Cho stalked and tormented the mouse for 10 or 15 minutes. Max, a Himalayan, showed little interest. He was far too disturbed by the tub's slippery basin. Omar, offspring of Max and Cho-Cho, took the next turn and chased the mouse with the enthusiasm of an over-sugared toddler. Last came Sebastian, another Himalayan, but he had to be removed quickly when he actually tried to kill a mouse. While this was happening, my three adorable little sisters, well, two of them, the youngest was only about 2.5, decided to name the mouse, and thus my family adopted Harold the Christmas Mouse. I love real-life stories like this. That was great work from Jennifer. Really, really love that one. Our final shout-out this week is The Curse of the Scottish Play by Jude Klinger. This is a fun story about a woman who's casted in a Scottish play well known for having a curse associated with it. The curse, of course, only happens if you say the play's name. Now, I'm not super superstitious, but 2026 is going well so far, so I'm not going to say the name of the play here just to be safe, but you get the idea. At the beginning of the story, she calls her mother to tell her the good news, and she lets the name of the play slip. Her mom, of course, berates her about the curse and tells her she needs to go outside, spit over her left shoulder, and say, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us." I won't say whether or not our protagonist takes the advice, but if you want to find out what happens next, you should give this one a read. It's a fun and funny look at theater culture and the role that superstitions like this one play within it. Here's an excerpt. We had a 3 o'clock call for a full cast read-through. I ate enough Advil to cure my hangover and showed up right on time. What I didn't remember to do was call Mom. When I got to the theater, the door was locked. I called Charlene to come and open the door. Lainey? What's the matter with you? The door was open. You didn't pull hard enough. I did too. It was locked. No, it wasn't. Are you feeling okay? She asked, giving me a thorough once-over. Come on, let's go inside or we'll be late. Charlene held the door open and invited me inside. It was close to 6 o'clock when rehearsal wrapped up and I finally reached Mom. Hey, sorry about not calling you back. We were celebrating. What's up? I just wanted to make sure you did what I told you to do. You mean the swirl and spit thing? I asked with a sinking feeling, crossing my fingers behind my back. I lied. Sure, of course I did. Even though I could feel my theater blood going into full battle mode with my rational brain. Lots of new faces this week, which I love to see. Thank you to everyone who submitted, and remember to find links to all these stories in the show notes. Now, next up, we'll take a look at this past week's Wandering Prompt winner. Welcome, one and all, to this week's Wandering Prompt Awards ceremony. This week, we're taking a look at Component Tested by Connor Mancuso. Connor actually ran to his computer to write this one after he heard it on last week's episode. That's really impressive. You know, he probably did more running there than I will in all of 2026. Haha, ain't that the truth? Okay, so the prompt this past week was to write about scientists who discover definitive proof of the afterlife. Connor, in true cosmic horror fashion, offers us up something that seems good at first, but quickly pulls back the curtain. It's a unique reveal and a chilling realization for the reader. At the end, he asks if what they found unsettled them or if they thought, yeah, that tracks. What did you guys think of this one? Oh, for me, it absolutely tracks. I've died more times than I can count. Oh, wait, really? How are you dying and coming back so much? It's my fault, really. I keep auditioning for roles in your stories. Oh, that's a good one. Very funny. Well, I found this one really unsettling. The reveal successfully knocked me over the head with a profound sense of dread. It's a really chilling piece. Let's check out an extended excerpt. In room 3A hung the glass, a black ring over the bed, drinking light, spitting it back in patterns. It watched the storm of a dying brain, magnified the last flickers, past noise, and projected whatever the mind stepped into as it stepped away. The first trial was a man of 93, lungs like wet paper, skin gone thin as old ink. I've believed in a lot of things, he rasped. Let's see if death is any different. He died with the glass humming. Monitors screamed, then sighed flat. The ring woke. For 3 seconds it filled the room with thick, golden radiance. Shapes that weren't shapes. Spirals inside spirals. A hint of door in every direction. Someone sobbed. Someone said, "Oh, God!" Like it finally fit. The recording slowed. Looked like every deathbed vision anyone ever wrote. Warm light, soft ascent, pain dissolving like sugar. Chaplain happy, investors happier. Incredible work from Connor for last week's Wandering Prompt. Stay tuned for the next one hidden somewhere in this very episode. Remember, it shows up somewhere new every week, and no, I'm not going to drop it here again. At least not this episode. Next, we'll take a look at this week's Power Up Prompt Stories, right after a look at this first week of January's Indie Release Radar. Welcome to the first Indie Release Radar of January 2026, powered by BookStack. Arnold, you ready to check out some new books for this month?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, you okay, bud? You seem less hyped than usual.
I'm still hungover. I partied too hard for New Year's.
Oh, really? Well, what was your drink of choice, if you don't mind my asking?
Protein shakes. What else would I drink?
Okay, but those wouldn't make you feel hungover.
I spiked them with vodka.
Okay, that'll do it. Well, let's dive in and see if any of these books can cure your hangover. First up, Blood Eye Beach is the first book in the Blood Eye Beach series by Eli Wood S. Geist. 10 years ago, Edie Grayson uncovered a dark secret about her hometown of Blood Eye Beach that forced her to flee, never to return. A decade later, her father's in trouble, which forces her to go back and confront what happened all those years ago. Her friend and crush Milo are still in town as well, and her feelings for him are stronger than ever. Can Edie uncover the truth of Blood Eye Beach before its secrets swallow her whole? Find out when Blood Eye Beach releases on January 1st. Next up, Heart Scars is the second book in the Grimoire detective series from author Cal Bowen. This pulp-paced magical detective adventure novel throws readers into a hidden world of magic and found family. Join an amateur magical detective by the name of Charlene Charlie Warlock as they work with their partner Ashley Kincaid to solve problems in a world where magic is still very much a secret. When an old flame from the past returns to St. Constantine in need of some help, a race against the clock to recover a stolen artifact begins. Will Charlie and Ashley solve the case before it's too late? Find out when Heart Scars hits digital shelves on January 4th. And last but certainly not least, The Libra Legacy is the second book in the Starborn Saga series by author Willa Hollis. When Jada is invited to the City of Wonder, she's certain it's where she belongs. Amid the city's brilliance lies chaos, however, and she will stop at nothing to restore balance. Meanwhile, Zelly is still reeling from the chaos of the Gemini games. Hungry for revenge against the cosmos, she'll uncover an ancient prophecy that could change everything. As constellations shift and secrets come to light, will these two friends survive the challenges ahead? Find out when The Libra Legacy releases on January 6th. Well, Arnold, what did you think of these ones?
I think I need you to stop yelling.
I'm not Oh, the hangover. Oh, all right, bud. Let's get you some Advil and water. How's that sound?
Can I have some liquid IV?
Sure, Arnold. I'll find you some. All right, and we're back. This week's power-up prompt was Western. Your setting was the ghost town, your character was the disgraced deputy, and your conflict was delivering justice. This prompt is super special too for a number of reasons. First off, any story submitted this week is eligible for a full review on Dread Reviews, which is an amazing and satirical newsletter from Derek James Kritzberg. 7 of this week's stories will appear in that publication soon, and I promise you're going to love how Derek spotlights work in his newsletter. I can't wait to see what he thinks. This week, I'm also excited to announce that several of the shoutouts I'll be reading here were written by Luna Astley Kolsu. If you're not familiar with Luna's work, you should absolutely check out the amazing stuff she's doing here on Substack. She's been a fan of the show for a while now, and she asked me if she could help with the power-up prompts, so I, of course, said yes. All right, let's dive in and see what both Luna and I had to say about this week's Western stories. First up, we've got Three Tongues by Nicholas Barely. This is an excellent poem that manages to establish an incredible amount of atmosphere and world building in just a few stanzas. The writing style here really reflects the feelings and themes of a good Western. In particular, there's a line near the end that says, "He dug 3 holes for 3 desert seeds and the remains of his humanity." It's one of those pieces where every line feels like a mic drop, and it's all the better for it. It reads like myth blended with legend, and it's great stuff to start off this week's Power Prompt Stories. Next up, we've got Taking Measure by Jennifer Jorgensen. And this is one of the stories that Luna reviewed. So here's what Luna had to say about this one. The best prompt responses don't just use the elements. They subvert them. The prompts were Ghost Town, Disgraced Deputy, Delivering Justice. She turned the ghost town into an abandoned amusement park section called Happy Fun Time, complete with artificial tumbleweeds gone haywire post-apocalypse. The deputy is an empath who lost her badge for trapping a predator inside his victim's trauma. And justice? Justice becomes mercy. The scientist she's been hunting has already destroyed himself with guilt. Punishing him would be redundant. So, she gives him food, water, and walks away. I love the way the empathetic abilities externalize emotion as physical sensation. Guilt hits like a hot brick to her chest. Grief has weight. The two interlocking confessions create the satisfying structural mirror, a post-apocalyptic story about finding compassion for the guilty. Quietly devastating. Amazing review from Luna there. And I have to agree, as always with Jennifer's work, we can expect a unique and really cool premise paired with stellar characters and exceptional writing. Honestly, I think Quietly Devastating describes more than a few of Jennifer's stories as well, including this one. Her use of emotion and impact is subtle but powerful. It resonates, like any good story should. And of course, I expect nothing less from one of my favorite writers on Substack. I'd say Jennifer's done it again. Next up, we've got Silver and Ash at Red Hollow by CJ Knight, aka Terrifying Tales. This one was fantastic. It begins as a classic Western story complete with dialogue and settings pulled straight from the greatest spaghetti Westerns. However, in true CJ fashion, things quickly take a turn toward horror. Our deputy character captures an outlaw who tries to warn him about something that's coming, something that will kill everyone if they don't heed his warning. He confesses to killing people aboard the train they found him on, but he's far from the worst thing that's coming their way. Things quickly unravel from here, and I loved every second of this piece. The ending is superb and satisfying, while leaving room for more stories set in this world. I love how CJ Knight effortlessly blends genres in his work, and he's done it once again here. A really fun read. Next up, we've got Wanted by Mary Ellen Brady, and this is another story that Luna reviewed this week, so let's see what she had to say. A bounty hunter tracks an outlaw into a ghost town where the dead remember everything, including him. The spirits interrogate, drag up everything he's spent decades outrunning. There's a twist, and it lands. Changes what you thought you were reading. Western setting. The speculative elements earn their place here, though, enough distance to see the machinery of law and loyalty for what it really is. Ghosts get the final word. What happens when following the law means protecting the wrong people. Yeah, love that review from Luna, and as always, Mary Ellen she creates worlds that feel so rich and realized and lived in, and she does it over the span of a short story. It's incredible. I every time it happens, I'm blown away. So thank you to Luna for that phenomenal review. Next this week is The Ledger by J.M. Gooding. And it's really interesting to read J.M.'s work for me in different genres because each time he switches genres, he hones in on specific elements of his style. So when he's working in horror, folklore, or science fiction, each time the elements are shifted to best suit the style of the story he's telling. It's the work of a great writer, but case in point, this Western from him really highlights his imagery and dialogue. The scene setting in the beginning of the story is top tier and very atmospheric. However, as the story goes on, it's the dialogue for me that really stole the show. The deputy's dialogue commands attention. The word choice and rhythm gives him an immediate presence that leaps right off the page. When he speaks, everyone listens, and you lean in. It's that good of dialogue. Really impressive work from JM this week, and I love the haunting conclusion as well. Next up, we've got Under Another Name by Wendy Russell. With this story, Wendy took the Western setting and adapted it to New Zealand's goldfields, which is the closest they have to a sort of Wild West like in the United States. She describes it as a place with the same boom and busy towns, fragile laws, and men who outlived their authority. So I love that. Great choice of setting. There's also an excellent historical photograph at the top of the story, which got me immersed in the historical context of the tale right away. Dialogue is also a major winner in this piece for me. I loved the banter between the deputy and the outlaw. Their back and forth creates a nice sense of tension, especially in the scene where they sit down to eat. I've noticed this about Wendy's work the last few stories I've read. She's extremely good at using dialogue and body language to create thick tension in scenes that require it. For example, during the scene that I mentioned, at one point, one of the characters tightens the grip on his spoon in response to a quip from the outlaw. It's things like that that work really well for building tension for me, and it adds to the scene. Excellent work from Wendy Russell. Don't forget to check the show notes for links to all these. Our next Western story this week is Out Here, Justice Eats First by Connor Mancuso. So with this story, Connor promises a story about what happens when justice stops being a question and starts being a mechanism, and I do love Connor's intros. The opening of the story here establishes a great setting, and the atmosphere is thick and immediate. I felt myself falling into the world as I often do with Connor's work. And I have to shout out the names. The deputy goes by Rowan Kessler, and that is a phenomenal name, but the outlaw's name is Gideon Vale, which is almost even better. Like, seriously, great names in this story. And something interesting happened here while I was reading this one specifically. I mentioned this before on Substack, but I was recently a beta reader on Connor's upcoming novel, and I feel like now that I've read that story of his, I have this newfound perspective on his work overall. See, there are certain elements in this Western that call back to his novel, which makes sense because Connor does write his stories in a connected mythos. But I feel like now that I've read his novel, I can see those connections more clearly than ever. Of course, the story works on its own, but that new perspective gave me a unique experience this week as a reader. I feel like the story is connected to his novel, and that's a really cool feeling as a fan of his work to be able to make that connection. So really cool stuff there. Our next story this week is The Courthouse at Witness Stand by Loki Cohn. So this one I think is going to be my favorite pick for this week, folks. It begins with the setup and informs us that the deputy and the outlaw are conducting the trial for the outlaw at a ghost town from the prompt. But once the trial begins, spirits begin to show up to testify on the outlaw's behalf. It turns out that the killings came with a reason and a very good one. Loki Cohn presents all of this with a steady hand. The ghosts don't speak, but their stories resonate anyway. It's a powerful, powerful scene. I had chills the entire time. And bonus, at the end of the story, Loki Cone offers an amazing author's note that dives deeper into the thoughts behind the story, and I really recommend you give that a read as well. The direction that they went in with this was exceptional, and the emotions leapt off the page. It's phenomenal work. Definitely give this one a read. And next up, we've got The Mile He Didn't Take by Bent But True, and this review comes from Luna as well. Here's what she had to say. A ghost town sheriff's office where the sign reads law. The rest of the word broke off years ago. A deputy marches an outlaw toward town, choosing the long way because distance feels like penance. 5 sections mark the journey. The structure makes walking into reckoning. You feel every step. Dialogue does the heavy lifting here. No exposition. Just the distinction between defense and reason. Stories that travel versus stories that are true. The subtitle, A Confession Wrapped in Fiction. It reads that way. A story about complicity, broken systems, and when to stop participating in them. This much restraint is rare. I love that review from Luna because something about Bent But True's work is that it always has a perfect balance of all the elements, and there's always this sense of restraint in the sense that they hold back from giving away all the details, and they focus on whatever the kind of focus elements of the story are. So in this case, it was dialogue, right? So it would be very tempting to just kind of fill in gaps with exposition, but Bent But True really, when they go into a story, they have a focus, and you can see that when you're reading it. They have a clear goal, and they stick to it, and that is very, very difficult to maintain as a writer, because let's be honest, we have lots of temptations to take the story in all kinds of directions, but with Bent But True, like I said, the focus and the vision is always clear. Love that about their work. Our next story this week is The Last Law by Abhishek Banerjee. This story is about a disgraced deputy who didn't do something wrong per se, but was punished for doing right in a system that doesn't reward righteousness. Our protagonist, Elena Ruiz, arrested a man who killed people through negligence, but the town died as a result. She stayed for 19 years, asking herself the question no one else wanted to face. Was it worth it? The author describes this story as one about aftermath, the cost of moral clarity, and what remains when the hero's choice and the villain's choice produce the same ruin. Love that pitch. And with this story, I love the way the backstory and the guilt of the situation comes through in the dialogue. Our characters exchange information like currency, and it flows effortlessly throughout the story. It's also a story that spans a significant amount of time and space, whether that's through reflection of the past or events of the present. It's a story rich with detail and lots of great character development. It's a journey well worth taking alongside them. Excellent work from Abhishek this week. Next up, we have The Ballad of Enoch the Endless by Richard Loder. Amazing title, by the way. I like that a lot. And this one is a poem. It's the first poem Richard has done, so I was excited to check it out. What I loved about this piece is how it reads like a ballad. It feels like an epic tale that travels on the winds of time, reaching people from all walks of life and changing every time it's told. I like the use of 3-line stanzas here, and the rhyme structure does a great job of reinforcing that rhythm of a ballad in the piece. A poem like this works really well with this prompt because I feel like Western stories usually carry that weight of legend, like they've been passed on, and Richard absolutely nails that feeling in this piece. He also messaged me with a fun little Easter egg about the setting's name and how it's an anagram. I won't spoil the answer, but keep that in mind as you're reading. Check it out, and you'll find a link in the show notes. Next up, we have The Exile by Suparna Chakraborty. This is a flash fiction piece that uses dialogue to reveal some shocking accusations about the story's sheriff, while also implementing the other elements of the prompt throughout. I like how as you're reading, you can see the gears turning in the deputy's head as they're speaking with the outlaw. By the end, it's clear that the outlaw is not the real problem, but I loved how the story organically reveals that and sways the deputy's opinion by the end. A great flash fiction piece from Suparna. Our next story is Hounds of Eden by Clara McGuffin. With this story, Clara offers up a truly unique and excellent take on a Western that weaves in elements of the supernatural. Now, I don't want to spoil those unique elements, but the title there will give you a hint. The way the story unfolds is gripping. Clara drops small hints and details, layering in backstory, and really making the world feel lived in before the action kicks into high gear. I love the ambiguity as well. It keeps you glued to the screen as all those details come into focus. And of course, the ending leaves us a lot to think about, and many ways that it could play out going forward. Fantastic take on this week's prompt from Clara. And next up, we have Perdido Sekov, The Case of Trainer Salamort by Mercedes D. Santiago. I've been enjoying Mercedes' power prompt stories each week, but this one is probably one of my favorites from her. It blends mystery with the Western genre to create a compelling case that unfolds in real time. I love how the reader is situated firmly in the mind of the protagonist, allowing us to piece things together right alongside them. Nothing is clear at first, but by the end, the character's entire worldview is shaken, and a conspiracy is revealed. I love the sudden ending as well. It lets those final revelations echo in the mind of the reader. Okay, and our final power-up prompt story this week is The Western End of Mars by Johanna. This story is actually a level 2 piece, but I see those so rarely that I love shouting them out on the show. So in this case, the author used the setting and the main character as their 2 elements. And here's the thing, I was really hoping for a sci-fi western mashup this week. It's why I used Cowboy Bebop's theme as the musical pairing for the prompt. There was a little hint there. Johanna understood the assignment. I love the Mars colony setting here. The story follows a deputy who discovers their sheriff wounded after she uncovers a conspiracy to wipe out the entire colony. They wanted to silence her, but the truth is out. This revelation adds incredible tension to the story because at this point, our protagonist has to worry not only about the shooter, but they have to race against the clock to save the entire Mars colony. The ending is brutal. It's sudden and bittersweet. And I love the last line as well, a nice callback to earlier in the story. This is a wild ride, a fun mashup of sci-fi and western, so please be sure to check it out. And again, you'll find links to all these in the show notes. And don't forget, Derek James Kritzberg will be reviewing several of these stories in his next Dread Reviews newsletter, so keep an eye out to see if your story is selected. To keep things fair, he's picking them at random, but he said he'll feature 7 in total, which is about half the entries this week. Thank you to Derek for that amazing collaboration, and speaking of collaboration, a huge shout out to Luna Asli-Kolsu, again, for her help reviewing some of the stories this week. She did a fantastic job. Next up, our weekly writing discussion, but first, a quick mindful moment. Hey there, this is Chill Bradley, here with this week's mindful moment. Here's a quote to consider. If you want to write, you can. Fear stops most people from writing, not lack of talent. Who am I? What right have I to speak? Who will listen to me? You are a human being with a unique story to tell. You have every right. Richard Rhodes. I love this quote because it cuts right to the heart of the matter. Whatever imposter syndrome is telling you, this quote invalidates it. A lot of us started our creative journey this year. For others, our creative journey started over again. The latter describes me. When I joined Substack in January of 2025, I was in the worst writing rut of my life. My personal life was in shambles. My professional life was fine, but like any creative person, I felt hollow without the desire or motivation to write. I entered 2025 as a zombie, a soulless husk. So, I set up a Substack and a little publication called The Writer's Journey. You may have heard of it. I figured I would start fresh. Try again. And that's the big takeaway here. As long as you are here, you can always start again. There's no rule against starting fresh if you need to, and you can start again as many times as you need. So keep that in mind. And thanks for listening. Back to the show. All right, and we're back. For this week's writing discussion, I decided to go with a classic. I wanted to know what your writing goals were for 2026. I myself am going to try and finish the novel I've been working on for many, many years, and I'm just going to make a promise to myself right now to stop letting it sit and fester like this thing I'm afraid to write because I won't do it justice. I'm going to take my own advice and tell imposter syndrome to take a hike. I've got a lot of other goals as well, but let's shift focus to see what everyone in the community has lined up for the coming year. First up, J.M. Gooding says, I just plan to continue to write and build an audience. I have a couple ideas for longer form projects. I'll continue the folklore/World War II mashups until I get the attention it deserves. The beatings will continue until morale improves. I love that. I've also got some plans for some longer form stories, possibly in the novella/novel length area. Not sure if I'm going to serialize them or publish them. Amazing. I love it when writers have plenty of ideas lined up, and honestly with J.M. Gooding, he's right to keep going with the folklore and World War II mashups until they strike gold, because they are gold, and if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. Next up, Verdant Butterfly says, 2026 will be my year. I've been waiting my whole creative journey for this year. I have 3 anthologies that I will be published in. I also plan to self-publish my first collection of fairy poems and artwork in the first quarter of 2026. I'm working on a creative project with another indie creator here on Substack. Love it, love it, love it. Verdant Butterfly, I have seen some behind-the-scenes looks at some of the art that she's working on, and then obviously I follow her work as well, all of her writing, and let me tell you, there is some really cool stuff in the pipeline. So I am so excited to see what 2026 holds for this insanely talented writer, poet, and artist. So thank you to Verdant Butterfly for that answer. Next up, Jennifer Jorgensen says, I'm just going to keep writing. That's the only actual goal. But that includes working on finishing my first novel, and that I'm pretty excited about. Simple and sweet, Jennifer, and I like that you're working on a novel. I am extremely interested to hear more about that. Ooh, I'm going to have to ask you about it. Definitely want to hear more about that project. It sounds like a fantastic goal for next year. Or this year, I guess, at this point. Next up, Wendy Russell says, Happy New Year, everyone. I'm a bit ahead of the pack here in New Zealand, but it already looks like a great year. Honestly, I don't really have any goals as such, but as Jennifer said above, I'm just going to keep writing. Apart from my ongoing work with BookStack and also with Sylvia and Athara, it's all about surviving through writing. Amazing stuff, and I love the joke about New Zealand being ahead of the pack. Glad to hear 2026 is off to a good start, and thank you, Wendy, for that great answer. Looking forward to everything you publish in 2026. Next up, Rebecca Watson says, Congrats on closing out the year with such big, delicious plans. A cosmic horror trilogy and 2 podcasts is no small thing. And thank you, Rebecca. It is no small thing, and it's not even close to everything I'm working on. Rebecca goes on to say, for 2026, one of my main focuses is launching a collaborative Substack series called Ink That Waits. My goal is to build it slowly and intentionally, centering trust, creative risk, and that electric feeling of not knowing where a piece will end up once you release it into someone else's hands. Fascinating. I like that description and the title too. Ink That Waits. Okay. All right. I'm definitely going to be following along with that. It sounds fantastic, Rebecca. Thank you for that input. Next up, Marty Daly says, Happy New Year. I'm planning on querying agents soon, so fingers crossed. Ah, a big step there, Marty. Wishing you the best of luck. Keep us posted. I want to know when that eventually finds its home. That sounds amazing. Next up, Mariah K. Porter says, My number one focus is building a writing community. Really, my main goal for the year is to build community in general. Right now, I'm also working on a speculative fiction novel and a sort of self-help memoir, kind of. I haven't decided what publishing route I'll take, but I have a goal to get them ready to publish. I also decided late last night to write and post a cozy short story inspired by a picture I'd seen yesterday morning. And now I'm thinking I'll keep writing and sharing short stories about different members of that found family. Wonderful! Love it, love it, love it. Mariah actually joined Substack recently here, and she's part of a writing group that I attend on a weekly basis. So I've heard a little bit about her self-help memoir / fiction novel, and it sounds amazing so far, so definitely check out her work. She also posted a sonnet, actually, the other day. It was one of her first notes on Substack, and that was excellent as well. So, very much looking forward to the cozy short story here and everything that Mariah's got going on in 2026. Thanks for the answer. Next up, Sarah says, I'm hoping to publish my 3rd children's book and 2 flash fiction collections. The manuscripts are all done. I'm up to editing and illustrations. And I have a bank of stories to publish on here so I don't disappear while I'm working on the next stages. Hey, I love it. Awesome stuff, Sarah. I actually did the exact same thing when I started on Substack in January. I kind of pulled some stories from the vault that I'd published elsewhere and kind of refreshed them and posted them on here to kind of give myself a running start, and obviously it worked. So these days, obviously, I'm out of those backlog of stories, but I do think it's a great strategy. So glad to hear that you'll have some new stuff coming out while you're working behind the scenes. Great stuff. Next up, Ivo Ziskra says, I'm hoping to write more short stories and maybe get back to my novel. Maybe try writing in genres that I have not written before, too. I love that. I love that. As we've seen this year, people like Mary Ellen, our guest coming up here soon, have discovered that writing in other genres can really broaden your horizons. And these days, you'll be surprised how your audience will read genres they're not normally used to just because you wrote it. So definitely, spread your wings. I love that answer. Next up, Clara McGuffin says, I have completed 2 folk horror novels and I want to publish at least 1 in 2026. I write based on real Scandinavian lore. My Substack is mostly my research. My biggest problem is that I have no readers for my fiction, so it's okay I am fishing a bit here. Any readers for a Scandinavian folklore about a couple that buys a house and find a smoked corpse in the attic. Also starting a podcast with old folklore and such. Okay, cool. No, I love the pitch, Clara. If anybody likes the sound of that, be sure to head on over to her profile. And like I said, her power prompt story this week was excellent. So you got plenty to read over there. Let's show her fiction some love. And I cannot wait for that podcast. I will absolutely be a listener. Sounds amazing. Next up, Mina Howell says, I hope I'm not too late for this. You are not, my friend. I am planning on finishing up the Ophiocordyceps saga this year, having it published by October. I also want to try to publish a book of poetry, though I need to think of a theme. Lastly, and this is just a dream at the moment, but I would really love to turn Redemption is Overrated into a graphic novel. I think that would be sick. Mina, yes, that would be sick. For those unaware, Redemption is Overrated is actually a modern take on Dante's Inferno, and its visual style is extremely cool, so I could see it working very well as a graphic novel. And of course, you've heard me talk about the Ophiocordyceps saga plenty of times, so lots and lots of reasons to check out Mina's work, and that poetry collection, that is going to be amazing. Can't wait for that. Next up, the Blasphemous Herald says, First, I'm translating my whole work into Spanish. In the second quarter of the year, I'm finishing my Sepultura trilogy with the novel The Fury of the Aswang. On the third, I'll be publishing an expansion for my 2D6 Belief Engine TTRPG. So, a busy year ahead. Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. Love the sound of the novel and a TTRPG. Count me in. That sounds awesome. All right, last but not least, James Mays says, I'm going to try and do my garden stories again this year, but this time not get overwhelmed in the process. Yes, 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 yes. I love that James is trying again, starting fresh. As we said in the Mindful Moment, that's something that you can do as many times as you need. And the beginning of the year is a great time to just clear the slate and try again. It's okay to get overwhelmed. And trust me, we've all felt the burnout. So I'm glad you're here, James, and I can't wait to get back into those stories. I feel like I remember reading them, and I loved them back then. So looking forward to them in the new year. All right, and thank you to everyone who submitted answers. Some truly amazing goals for 2026. I can't wait to see you all reach and exceed them. And now, without further ado, it's time for our featured guest interview. This week, for the 50th episode of the Saved as Draft podcast, I have a very special guest. She's someone who started on Substack precisely the day that I did, which of course was January 4th, 2025. And both of us are coming up on our first year here. It's an exciting milestone. Over the course of 2025, this author has written hundreds of stories and poems, participating in every single one of my writing challenges, and she took home the grand prize for the first indulgence. This is her first time being interviewed about her work, and I think she did an amazing job. So, without further delay, let's get into this week's extremely special featured guest interview. All right, everybody. And for the 50th episode of the Saved as Draft podcast, I have an extremely special guest. She's someone that a lot of you will recognize, and she's someone who I consider my Substack twin since we both joined on the exact same day back in January. You know her for all kinds of genres of stories, as well as the winner of the First Indulgence Challenge and the creator of Starlight Cove. Please welcome to the Saved as Draft podcast, my dear friend and an extremely talented author, Mary Ellen Brady. Thank you for being here, Mary Ellen.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, let's start off by having you tell us just a little bit about yourself and the creative journey you've had thus far.
A little bit about myself. Okay. I am a creative soul that lives in the Pacific Northwest. I was born in Baltimore. City life didn't agree with me. I needed to be in the trees. I came to the Pacific Northwest to go to college and never went home. I write. I'm a photographer, and I'm a very bad cello player, but I still love it.
How long have you been playing cello?
I started maybe 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I had maybe 4 or 5 lessons. The teacher was used to teaching 4-year-olds and not adults. So I just went home and said, I'll figure this out. And I've been figuring it out. And I'm doing okay for self-taught.
That's good. That's amazing. Yeah, I asked because I had a brief stint with violin back in the day.
Cool.
Yeah, and then as I went through school, I ended up playing piano and then French horn for a while. So it's always nice to meet a musician or to learn more about you as a musician.
And the string instruments are always like the toughest one. No one told me that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that based on my experience. Yeah. So specifically in terms of like writing, when did you kind of have that moment for yourself when you realized you wanted to be a writer? And do you by chance remember the first story that you ever wrote?
I've always been a storyteller. I made recordings for my dad. My dad was a truck driver. When I was firstborn until I was maybe 5. He drove an 18-wheeler, and I was always worried that he would fall asleep behind the wheel because it's dark out. And at 3 years old, you're thinking that's time to sleep. So I make him these stories on cassette tapes,
Huh.
and I would tell him these fantastic stories about, aliens and mermaids and whatever I could think of. And that is how I started.
Wow, that has to be one of the best kind of writer origin stories I've ever heard. That is wonderful.
When my dad passed away a couple years ago and I was cleaning out his house, I actually found the tapes
Oh,
and I listened to a couple of them and I was just like, oh my gosh, he saved this. It was just, I made sound effects. I was like this inventive little books on tape girl that made these intricately woven stories and they all related.
wow. Wow. That is incredible. Oh my goodness. That is fantastic. Amazing. Amazing. How many of them roughly did you do? Just like ballpark.
He had at least 20, 25 cassette tapes. So I don't know, they run like what, 30 minutes on each side.
Yeah.
I filled them up. I know I filled them up. And, if I ran out of story, I would just be like, Daddy, I love you. Come home to me kind of thing. But yeah, I would just fill it up with all kinds of crazy adventures for him to listen to.
That is got to be one of the coolest things I've ever heard. Wow, that is amazing. I love that so much. Okay, so in terms of how you get inspired as a writer, my next question here is, where do you typically go when you're trying to seek inspiration? What are kind of your top picks?
I get inspiration everywhere. I like to be out in the world. I was thinking about this as I was driving today. Even when I first moved to Seattle, I would ride the ferry and tell stories in my mind about the people that I would see. So I'm always kind of, as long as I'm out in the world, I can figure out a story for myself and
Hmm.
be able to write it down.
That's interesting. I can see that reflected in your work. Your work is like it's detail oriented. It's also character oriented, and it's incredible how you're able to capture what feels like such genuine and real moments in all of your stories, regardless of genre. And it makes sense that that would be inspired, of course, like you said, by just being very observant and kind of absorbing the world around you. I love that.
I find people very interesting. I mean, little intricate habits. If you watch them closely enough, you can see things that tell a story about them, even when you don't speak to them. And that's kind of my thing. I love to do that. I love to people watch.
No, I think a lot of writers would agree with you there. That actually reminds me of back when I was in college in a creative writing class. One of our assignments one week was to write a story based on like just a snippet of a conversation that we overheard. So like if you're out and about and you walk by and you hear people talking and you catch like a sentence, you were supposed to kind of grab that and run with it. And so I feel like I don't remember what I wrote based on that, but yeah, definitely.
That would be a fun exercise. You should do that for a prompt. I think
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yes, I like that idea. Yes, we're definitely going to do that now. Is it a similar approach to, because you mentioned you also do photography, obviously, and I really love your photography. Is it a similar approach in terms of how you get inspired for your photography as well? Is it just kind of like being like in that kind of state of like observation and awareness where you kind of like get inspired?
I think so. I usually take my camera and walk around like a park or a garden. And at first, it's kind of like I don't see anything. And then when I get quiet in my mind and start to focus on the color, maybe, or shapes, then you start to notice things. But you have to quiet yourself down, I think.
Mm, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think something that I personally struggle with is trying to quiet my mind, right? Like I feel like it's always just so much noise everywhere all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a skill that I'm still working on for sure. It's not something I've mastered.
We're all in progress. There is no getting there. It's always in progress.
Yes, 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 yes. I agree. Absolutely. So my next question here for you is, and again, this is kind of looking at, the full scope of the work that you do, which is a lot of different genres and styles. But in general, what would you say are kind of the themes and topics that tend to come up most in your stories? And what do you hope that readers of your work kind of take away from any story that you write?
Themes, I think, like this last story that I wrote for you, the Western, it always comes up with either people are connected and they need to see how connected we are. We're not all disjointed and separate individuals.
Mm,
There's always a link to each of us. And the environment, I think the environment personally is an alive thing, and we need to respect it more than we do.
Yes, yes. Wholeheartedly agree on both points. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
think
and
that's where
that's
my eco horror comes from is the bad guy is always the humans that don't see what they're doing.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, specifically with eco horror, for me, that was a genre that I had not really experienced a whole lot of until I joined Substack and I met obviously our mutual friend Mina Howell, who does a lot of eco horror. Is that a genre that you've also done for a while now?
Well, since I've joined Substack and Mina introduced me, she's like, "Oh, you write eco horror," and I'm like, "I do." Okay, is that what it's called? I did not know what all the genres were called, really. I stayed hidden away in the world. Substack's really my first public outing in the world of writing.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Right, right, right. Yeah, it's funny how Mina introduced both of us to the genre because again, I didn't really know. I understand it obviously, but I didn't really know kind of how to write it or what it really looked like when you sort of zoomed in on that genre specifically until I
Yeah.
joined Substack. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. No, that's awesome. So, my next question here, I want to talk a bit about your connected universe known as Starlight Cove. Let's start, I guess, maybe with just a like kind of a high level overview. Imagine you're talking to somebody who's never heard of it before. I want to kind of just start with like an introduction, and then we can dive a little bit deeper over the next several questions.
Okay. Starlight Cove is an island in the Pacific Northwest. It is more of a touristy town. The locals there is magic, but you have to believe in it before you see it. That's the main point of the magic system is you have to believe it before you see it.
Okay. Right. That makes sense. Yep. Yep. And you've done a lot of stories set there. Do you have any kind of estimation of how many you've done in Starlight Cove?
For Substack, there's probably about 50 or 60 stories. I've got the Queenagers, which is my over 70 group of women with Otis. He's an honorary Queenager. Um, they're a writers group, and they go on adventures. And I have their history that I've done for Substack of how they became Queenagers and became a writing group. But yeah, I think for Substack, there's about 50. And then I've got about 6 or 7 novels hidden away that I need to pull out and actually work on and get them published.
Oh wow, I cannot wait to hear more about those. I have been such a fan of Starlight Cove, and another thing that I wanted to ask you about too with Starlight Cove is there's the in-universe. I'm sorry, the name escapes me, but there's like an in-universe sort of like newspaper or newsletter that you've done. Is that available on Substack?
Yeah, Starlight Compass is the newspaper.
Right. How many issues of that have you done? And if I'm not mistaken, there hasn't been a new one in a while. Do you plan on bringing that back in 2026?
Yeah, I will bring that back. I lapsed this year because I was doing the 24 Days of Light and I was doing the 12 Days of Yule, and there was just only so many hours in the day. So Starlight Compass took a back seat for a while.
That's totally fair. Yeah, your production in 2025 has been nothing short of inspiring to see. How many posts have you done this year? I know it's several hundred, isn't it?
Yeah, there's about 500 of them.
Wow, incredible. Wow, that is amazing.
Mostly for you. I mean, I
Yeah.
see a prompt from you and I'm just like, oh, I'm on it.
And I have a similar reaction. I see a story from you for a prompt, and I'm like, I want to read that. And I know I'm not the only one.
It always surprises me because I think that I'm posting and no one's going to look. And then I see a comment from someone. I'll be like, oh, actually, people are reading this. It still surprises me. I mean, even after 500 stories, it still surprises me.
Yeah, I would agree too. Like honestly, after how successful this year has been from like my perspective, it's still just I think my favorite part is when like for example yesterday I posted I think a new story for Wild K Nebula's romance prompt and
Oh,
just
that
see
one was awesome.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when I read the prompt, I had this like immediate vision in my mind of like space and like and some sort of like rendezvous in space. That's like the first idea that came to me. And then I just kind of like let it simmer from there. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. But yeah, I love seeing like with stories like that, and I'm sure you would feel the same here, is those moments when you get a comment and it's someone brand new. Like you've never heard or seen from them before, and you're like, wow,
Yes.
like I'm still reaching new people. Like that's such a good feeling.
That is, I had that with the Western that I posted for you. There were two or three people that commented that I've never seen before. And I noticed that they subscribed after they read it. And I was just like, wow,
That's
this is
such
so cool.
Yeah, that is such an amazing feeling and a great moment. I love it. That's fantastic. So, yeah, my next kind of Starlight Cove related question is, given that there are so many of them, do you have any kind of recommended stories for someone listening right now? They're interested in Starlight Cove, but they don't know where to start. Do you have any like stories you'd recommend that are good for kind of a Starlight Cove beginner?
Starter. I would say my favorite is always to go with Ginger Lee is in present day, she is in her 70s, but I like her earlier stories. There's one about the macaws that she saves,
Mm-hmm.
which are not macaws. They're macaws in our world, but she's helping them cross over into another universe. Her and Otis go on an adventure with them in their younger days, and I really love that story a lot. And there's another one that Ginger was helping in World War II, and she was flying planes in Russia. And I find her earlier stuff that I didn't even know about until I joined Substack to be really inspiring. She's a really cool character.
Yes, 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 yes. I remember the Macaw's story. That one was fantastic. I definitely would recommend that one. And that was one of the first ones I think I read, at least in like the for one of the first several.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. So looking to 2026, then, what plans do you have for Starlight Cove? Because we talked about obviously bringing back the newspaper. But is there anything else? I mean, you mentioned the novels. Anything kind of in the pipeline for Starlight Cove? Specifically for 2026?
There is. I'm actually joining my worlds together. So everything's coming together, being knitted together. Newport Mills is got a bookstore novel coming out, and she is looking for her family, the girl that wanders into Newport Mills, and she finds her family in Starlight Cove. There's a whole bunch of related worlds that will be knit together, and Starlight Cove will be like the grounding place for all of them. It's the center of where the magic is in the world.
Interesting. Okay, I like that. Yeah, I feel like my connected universes are heading in a similar direction. Not to spoil anything, but yeah, I love that idea of kind of bringing everything together. That sounds amazing.
I was doing that with my Yule stories. I have Nevocata and Polaris linked up with the real world, and I'm hoping to have those worlds join into Starlight Cove that way too. So there's a lot of worlds that I have on different layers that everything just needs to be knit together for my own peace of mind, so I can
Sure.
keep everybody straight.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think readers will enjoy that too. I know I will. That makes sense though. So my next question here, I joked at the beginning during the introduction that you and I are like kind of quote unquote Substack twins because we started literally on the same day. It was January 4th, I think we said.
Yes,
Um,
January 4th.
yeah, 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 yeah. And I've already started working on an article myself actually for like a 1 year sort of recap. And I'm excited about that, and it's like I was thinking about it. I was working on the article before our interview here. And so I would love to ask you next here, being that you've been on Substack the exact same amount of time that I have, what what are some of your best memories from this first year? Like what are some of the highlights and how are you feeling about, just the community overall?
My highlights are pretty much it's a playground. Substack is my playground. I originally joined thinking I would throw a couple of stories out there, no one would read them, and I would say that I did it and go back to my cave. I didn't expect to learn so much about myself on
Yeah.
Substack. I tried all kinds of genres. It just became like this adventure of let's try it. What's the worst that can happen? Someone will read it and hate it. Oh well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those and everyone comes together as a community. If you're having a bad month, bad day, whatever, people are there for you, which I didn't expect with an online community as much. So that surprised me, and it's one of my favorite parts of Substack is we have our own little family group that everyone's there for each other, which I love.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree. That has been precisely my experience as well. And I love what you said too about, Substack being a playground in terms of like no idea is a bad idea. It's like you said, worst case scenario, you post it and it doesn't do well. Oh well, there's plenty more stories coming down the pipeline, right? Um,
Exactly.
yeah. No, I love that, and I think just as a note from my perspective as well in this first year, you really inspired me to stop worrying about what kind of writer I am. Like I think up until I joined Substack, and I'm curious if you would agree with this, it's like I was always kind of like, oh, I'm a horror writer. I write horror, and that's it, right? Like that's how I want
Yes.
people to perceive me. And then I met you. And we've collaborated on stuff. I've read all your work, and and I've seen you kind of spread your wings and just you're doing fantasy, you're doing horror, you're doing sci-fi, you're doing all these different genres, and you're excelling in all of them. And that's super inspiring for someone like me because I really let go of that need this year, I think, to box myself in. I said, you know what? I want to be like Mary Ellen. I want to write whatever stories I want. I don't want to box myself in, and I just trust that people will come and read them because I wrote them, right?
Right, right. Well, thank you, because I don't think I even thought about writing horror until I met you. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try it. Let's see. It might not be the kind of horror that everybody else wants to read, but I can make it sort of scientific. And then I started, oh, I like Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton's kind of scary. I'll write like Michael Crichton. So yeah, trying new things, I think, was the best part of Substack is meeting people and learning about all the different kinds of writing there is out in the world and not putting yourself in a box.
Yeah, absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. Yeah, and that actually works perfectly for my next question here, which is, of course, I wanted to ask about how your writing style has changed and evolved this past year, because as we just discussed, you tried out other genres like horror for the first time. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, what are some of the ways that you feel like you've grown as a writer, now that you've been able to kind of let yourself run free, imaginatively speaking. How's that made your writing style evolve?
I think I'm finding my voice. A lot of people have told me that they would know it as a story by me
Hmm.
just by reading it, which I still don't think I have my own voice yet. I find that I'm trying to still find it, but people are saying they know it. I wrote a Western for my dad that I expected no one to read, but I wanted it to be a tribute to him and honor him. And there were people that read Zane Grey and stuff, and they loved my Western. Trying it all out and just playing it, I'm finding what's important to me. I'm learning more about myself. Writing is like therapy, I think.
Yeah.
You learn more about yourself with every story you write.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, the therapeutic and kind of the catharsis of writing cannot be understated. It's something I've taken away from my writing as well. Over the course of my entire life, certainly this year. Yeah, no, I love that. So, in particular, this past year, you also, as we mentioned, have been writing horror stories. So, I'd like to talk a little bit about your experience with the first Indulgence specifically. And as I mentioned in the introduction, you were the grand prize winner. So, yeah, if you could just kind of take us through the month of October 2025, because you were posting stories every day.
Every
And
single day.
and I remember when I was tallying the final scores, shout out to Leron Haywood. They helped me a ton with the scoring system. When I was tallying the final scores, I remember I was talking to you and I was writing up the announcement for the grand prize. And I was at the airport on a work trip, and it's just such a core
Oh,
memory.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd love to hear about maybe some highlights from October, how you felt kind of during that challenge.
I was never a front runner, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have breakfast. Maybe by 10 o'clock, you'd have the prompt posted, and
Yeah.
I'd spend the day writing and try to get it in before bedtime. And the first couple of weeks, that was fine, and then all of a sudden, something turned a corner in like the third week, and I'm like, I'm in this to win this, man. This is mine.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I dropped every fear, every I don't know, at things that held me back. I was like, oh, I'm just going to type it into the laptop now. Because I usually write by hand. I'm like, nope. Just pour it out into the laptop and post. I'm not even editing. And I was like, some of these I hope are not word soup. And I would text you and say, I hope this is not word soup. But I posted. And somehow people liked it and I won. And I don't know how that happened, but I'm not a horror writer. But
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience. I mean, I lost so much fear and so much restriction of myself in that month. It was 31 days of crazy, and I loved every minute of it.
Amazing, amazing. I love how you described it too, because it's interesting to think that as you're writing horror stories, you were in turn letting go of those fears that you had of your own, right? Like it's such an interesting dynamic there, right? You're scaring other people, but you're letting go of your own fears. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even worrying about um, is this story structure correct? Is this because each of your prompts were specific, and I would just think about something and go, okay, this is the story, and start typing. And I let go of the fear of, I think, like in February and May when you were doing prompts, I was trying to please people. This is the prompt I'm doing according to the instructions. And I lost all that in October. It's just like, nope, this is the story and I'm posting it.
Amazing. I honestly I like that approach better. Obviously both work, but I love just the, just let the story play out approach. I love that. Uh, do you have any favorites? I'm trying to think, like obviously you literally did a story a day that month. I'm trying to think of any I mean I loved all of them, but are there any that still kind of stand out to you at all?
For the horror,
Yeah, for the horror challenge?
the warmth that remains is my
Hmm.
favorite, and it's going to go somewhere. I know it. Ignacia is my favorite.
Yes, 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 yes. Crispy zombies, as it were.
Crispy zombies. One of my friends said, when your novel or your graphic novel comes out, whichever I choose to do, she's like, we should have a bacon themed party. And I like that idea.
Yes, 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 yes. Oh my goodness. Yeah, The Warmth That Remains, I would say that was definitely one of my favorites. I want to say that was one of the top scoring stories in the whole challenge, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like it was up there. It had to be in the top 10.
And I'm not even a zombie fan. I don't watch zombie movies. I zombies were never a thing until I read that prompt and I'm like, oh, crispy zombies. I'm going to do different zombie. And it just flowed. Ignacia came to life and she just told the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something that I try to do with my stories and something that I love about your stories as well, specifically that one, is that it's like you said, zombies have been done over and over and over again, but the way that you approached it was something, really unique and fresh from like a, just kind of overall story perspective. And then you layer in the phenomenal characters, and just the real emotion that comes through. And yeah, I mean, it was a winner. It was a winner. And speaking of, I remember now as part of your grand prize, I narrated for you one of your later stories, which was a horror comedy, and that was your one about the aliens support group.
Yes. Oh my God, that was such a good recording too. I loved it. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that was a really fun story. Um, and I think what really blew me away there is that, again, over the course of the year, I'd seen you kind of jumping into all these different genres and trying all these new things. And I would say that, your stories have always, when appropriate, have had pretty good, sense of humor. But that one in particular had me like just dying of laughter. Like even when I was recording it, I had to pause to laugh.
I had so much fun writing that, and it was towards the end. I think it was might have been the last one that I wrote, and I just there was not a care in the world. I'm like, I'm going to be crazy and be me, and just put it all out there, and it worked.
Yes, no, it absolutely worked. Yeah, that one's another favorite of mine. And yeah, for my next question here, I wanted to touch upon the science fiction stories that you've done specifically, because again, you've done so many genres this year, but the science fiction stories that you've done, you mentioned Michael Crichton, of course. Um, in
I love
those,
him.
yes, in those stories, and just like in your work in general, but specifically in your science fiction, you always bring in real world elements of science and you kind of combine it with theoretical type stuff, and then you sort of let that dovetail into fiction, sort of expanding from there. And it's something that I've always just really, really loved about your science fiction in particular. So I'm curious, like when you are writing science fiction, do you just do a lot of research? Are these things that you've already kind of, like learned about in the past that you're kind of bringing to the forefront? Like, how do you approach science fiction specifically? Because I love the way that you do it.
I am a geek. I read weird stuff all the time. I'm always reading about stars. and astrophysics and all kinds of sciencey stuff. And when I was in college, I would just devour in the library things from physics or chemistry or biology. And I, for a while, was going to be a neurolinguist until I couldn't finish college. I got my BA, but I couldn't get my PhD. So all these things are tucked up in my brain and they just fall out when I write a story now. And
Mm.
occasionally I will go and look and say, oh, I want to do this. Has this field updated on these facts before I put them in here? And I will find the updated material, but it's all tucked to, I read everything. There's not a subject that I won't read about.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, because when you weave in those elements in your science fiction stories in particular, I always really feel like it comes from a place of like deep understanding. Because again, you incorporate it in such a way that it feels supernatural. For all of the stories that you do in that genre. So that makes
Well,
sense.
science is kind of magic to me. I find everything that, I mean, it's just magic that we haven't discovered yet or we're just learning about. Like black holes. Who knows what they are, but they're magical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I love that comparison because that's honestly something that I've said a lot too, is that, in the grand scheme of things, scientifically we understand very little about the universe. And so one of my favorite parts about being a writer is that space of like us not understanding or not knowing what all the answers are, that allows a lot of potential for us to come in and provide answers through our fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love it. So my next question here, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about your photography. I know we mentioned at the beginning of the interview here, but specifically, you featured some of your images in your work, and I'm curious, like, do you have like sort of like in your mind like a favorite photo that you've ever taken, and do you plan to maybe do more of that in 2026, where you merge your photography and your writing?
A lot of people have been asking me for photo books and things like that. And I'm not real keen on photo books that, are just coffee table look at. I want my photos to inspire and empower people. So I'm still looking for how I'm going to do that. As far as a favorite photo, um, there is one that I took. I don't know if I've posted it, but there's one that I took that I was laying on the ground of a mushroom with the sun coming up over the mushroom that I thought was actually the best thing that I've ever taken. And I remember staring at it for a long time thinking, I took this. This came from me. I saw this. Photography is always, it's magical. I see a raindrop on a leaf and then I'll take a picture and there's more to the photo than I actually observed with my eyes that I'll see later when I'm going through them.
I love that. Yeah, that makes sense. I also love what you said about not necessarily publishing like just a book of photography. It's more like drawing like kind of the stories behind the photos out of them. Like I would love to see a collection of stories from you where they're all inspired by photographs you've taken, for example. Like that would be really cool.
That's a cool idea. I, you know, I should ask Bent how he did the anthology for the Indulgence because he included art, and that would be cool. I would love to do it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because if I'm not mistaken, you have a story in the anthology as well, right?
Yes, I actually put in the one that you liked. I thought it was your favorite. It was The Return.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. 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 Fantastic story. Yes. Oh man, that whole collection was amazing.
That
I
group was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. The amount of people that came together, I mean, it was just, from my perspective, it was so humbling, right? Like just it's like you said, the community, like the community just really came together for that project, and like to, as a way to kind of help me out, and just to honor how successful that challenge was for everyone involved, right?
It was such an amazing event for everyone. And the group that came together, they were supportive and they helped each other through, oh, what do you think of this idea? We kind of were sounding boards for each other. It was wonderful. It was the best experience.
That's amazing. I love hearing about the behind the scenes parts of it. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, and speaking of like, writing events and stuff like that, obviously you've been hosting a few of your own. How is that going? Are you seeing some good success there?
It was a small one. There's still some people, they weren't doing it every day because, of course, I'm the crazy person like you that every day I'm going to post a new challenge and I would post a story with the challenge. And so I came up with a new world, Nevocata,
Hmm.
and it is an icy polar kind of world where magic exists. And a couple of people took off with it. Grousey Girl and Jack and Verdant Butterfly have all been posting, linking stories in that world, and it has been amazing.
Mm.
I did not know the other side that you live on, reading other people playing in your world. It was such an amazing thing. I loved it.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. I love that. I love that. And of course, like you said, you have plans to bring that world connected to Starlight Cove as well, right?
Yes, Nevocata is a very magical world that all kinds of beings exist there, and they're going to find their way into Starlight Cove. Yes.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, if you don't mind, I wanted to also ask about obviously this year, earlier in the year, but you had done some stories, speaking of connected universes, you had done some stories for my Devine universe. Specifically,
Yeah,
you had written a couple with Finton in there.
I
And
love Finton.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I would love to know kind of from your perspective, how it felt to kind of dive into Devine and what you think of Devine in general. I've never had a chance to actually ask you about it.
I love Devine. It's a magical, wonderful place. Taking someone else's character, at first I was just so nervous because
Hmm.
you had created him and I knew very little about him, but as I got to know him, I fell in love with him.
Yeah.
I even put him in a musical, which he seemed to enjoy.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but
Yes. Yes.
that
Yes.
is because Hamilton was on nonstop. So my stories are usually a scrapbook of my life, and you can tell when there's music going on because there'll be lyrics coming out one way or another.
Right. Right. No, I love that. Yeah. No, the way that you captured Finton as a character is something that will always be a core memory for me because you really did like understand what makes him tick. And yeah, so that was
And that
amazing.
was, I was really nervous because I didn't want to ruin him because he was your character in your world. So that trepidation was there. But once I got started, I just love him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I love that you, as you said, you're experiencing sort of the other side of that with the Nevocata challenge and world that you've created with the stories that people are telling there. It's really amazing how things have evolved over the course of the year, right? Like at the beginning of the year, you were diving into one of my worlds, and now you've got people diving into yours. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's 2025 has not been a friend to either of us, but
Yeah.
somehow writing wise, we have flourished, which is amazing.
Yeah, I said this in the article that I'm working on, kind of recapping the first year. I'm curious if you would agree with this, but I think 2025 for me is easily the most successful kind of single year that I've had as a writer, right? Like by far. Would you agree?
Yes, by far, I would agree. For you, for me, yes. Successful writing, yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, my next question here, and I know we touched upon a little bit of this already, but I wanted to just dive a little bit deeper, is what projects do you have that you're working on that aren't necessarily on Substack? So obviously you mentioned the novels that you want to kind of get back to, but what else are you kind of like, anything you would like to share, writing wise or creative wise that may not be on Substack yet, but could be, or stuff that fans of you might, have to look forward to?
Well, my photography is still on Instagram. I've let it go the last couple of months because I was writing furiously,
Mm.
but I will start that back up. And writing wise, there are novels that I'm definitely publishing in 2026. I have some anthologies of my own that I'm going to put out.
Mm.
So I will announce those when they're ready on Substack. But that's about it. I'm just focused on publishing in 2026. I want to make sure that, like my Western for my dad, I want that published by the time his birthday would have been in July. I wanted it published on his birthday.
Okay.
Um, so that's my main focus for 2026 is actually getting some books out in and getting my name out in bookstores and libraries.
I love that. I love that. So does that mean that you are you going to try to pursue traditional publishing or self-publishing or a mix of the two?
Oh, I'm going indie completely.
Indie.
Everything
Okay.
that I read, about traditional publishing makes me want to go hide somewhere. So definitely indie is for me.
No, I've seen so much success this year with our friends in the community and stuff regarding indie publishing. It's really it's been amazing to see. So I think that's an extremely valid way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's funny because when I first started Substack, traditional publishing was like the only way I saw myself publishing.
Hmm.
And it's completely changed since I've seen everyone on Substack.
I would agree. Yeah, I still remember like back in second grade when I first I think I may have told you this story, you know, in our messages, but in second grade I took home third place in a creative writing challenge, and that was the moment that I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. Like this is what I'm going to be, a writer. And for the longest time it was always, you know, I want to be traditionally published. I want to be like all my favorite authors, right?
Right.
And there is still a part of me that kind of wants to try it, even though it is terrifying. And you know, the industry, there's a lot you could say there. But I would agree with you that in 2025 specifically, I've really become, you know, really acquainted with the idea of indie publishing and self-publishing, and seeing how freeing it is and how much, you know, obviously creative control you have, which I think is really important.
That is really important. And I've seen a lot of authors that were traditionally published and successful at it move over to indie. Like
Mm,
one of my favorite authors of all time, Charles DeLint, he writes fantasy.
hmm.
Um, he traditionally published a lot of books. I mean, he has hundreds of books out and he's moving them over to indie, I believe. And I find that fascinating that he's now doing that. I I I think that a lot of traditionally published people are trying indie now.
Mm. That's really interesting. I hadn't heard about that specific story. That's fascinating. Yeah. Huh. I like it.
And
I like it.
Stephen King has tried things too. I mean, he's put things out, here's a chapter for free, and he would publish. I don't remember if it was on Twitter or something that he would publish online, and he would try different ways. I think all authors are trying different things to see what works for them, and traditional is not the only way anymore.
Yes, yes, you hit the nail on the head. I think something that I've learned and that I've seen in action this year is that, you know, growing up, I always thought traditional was the only way, but as you said, it's not the only way. There's so many avenues to success nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah, and all you have to do is be creative, which is kind of in our bloodstream. So
Right. Yes, we've got that going for us. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, specifically, just now, you had also mentioned we've talked about it a few times, the Western story that you're looking to publish next year, that you wrote as a dedication to your father. What is that story's kind of overall premise for someone listening? I kind of wanted to get your pitch on it.
it is called The Outsider. I wrote, I think, 10 or 12 episodes on Substack. The first one is still available. The rest of them are behind a paywall because I am going to edit and publish.
Right.
It is a Centaur Western, which is a tribute. My dad and I would watch Westerns every Saturday.
Hmm.
And we also watched like Greek mythology
Hmm.
stories. There were lots of movies. So I wrote a Centaur Western. The main character is a centaur and he's not accepted by his community. He's not accepted by humans, but he's still trying to be a good lawman. And it's it's an adventure story. It's an adventure story about being authentic, which is kind of a theme that I runs through all my stories, being authentic, being true to yourself, and then everything else falls into place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's beautiful. I also I've never I don't think I've ever seen a Centaur Western, but it makes so much sense as soon as you started talking about it.
I
Like it,
I hadn't seen it either, and as I was writing it, I was like, Dad's the only one that's going to get a kick out of this, so I'm just going to write it and put it out on Substack so it exists, and then
yeah.
I'll just publish it later as just one or two copies for my dad, in tribute, and it got a fandom. It really got a lot of people were I can't wait for the next episode. I was astounded.
That's amazing. It's such a good feeling. It's such a good feeling. Yeah, you know, given our conversation just now, I'm not sure if you've thought of this, but I would love to see at some point after the book is, you know, obviously edited and published, if you were able to record or have some audio recorded, like a narration of the story, and put that on a cassette tape. I think that would be such a beautiful kind of like aspect
That
of
would
this
be
project.
amazing.
Yeah, it would
Yes.
really bring everything full circle based on what we talked about here.
Yeah. Oh, my dad would have loved that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it would probably be multiple cassette tapes, right? Because it's a whole book.
They had books on tape a long time ago, didn't
They
they?
did. Yes, yes, yes. I was gonna say I remember when I was younger at the library, there was like the audiobook section and they would have it was almost like those this is what I'm remembering at least, but it was like those VHS style kind of cases, that were like plastic.
Oh, the
And
clamshell case.
yeah, and you would open it up and it would be like a flip book of cassette tapes, if I'm recalling correctly, is how they did it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to
Oh,
see the
I could do
Western.
that.
Yes, I would love to see the Western in that form. I think that would be so amazing.
That'd be really cool if people actually requested it too.
Yeah, yeah. If you're listening, drop a comment. Let Mary Ellen know we want a cassette tape audiobook of The Outsider. I would
That
buy it. I would buy it.
that's a golden opportunity for some cassette maker if they're still out there.
Right, exactly. Somebody listening to this right now is a cassette manufacturer, and they're like, "My time has come." Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Mary Ellen, I've got one last question for you here in my list. Um,
Okay.
I ask this to everyone who comes on the show. I would like to know, given all that you've experienced this year and as a writer, what's some advice that you would give to an author or a writer who's just now starting off on their creative journey, or maybe they just joined the community, they're very fresh, like kind of getting back into things, maybe. What's some advice that you would give them that you've learned over these years?
Leave your ego uh, down the road somewhere and just go play.
Hmm.
Don't box yourself in. Play with everything. I, Conversations. Take a notebook with you everywhere. Write down snippets of things that inspire you. Just live your life and play.
Yes,
That's it.
yes, absolutely. I ask everyone that question because I always get such profound answers, and everyone obviously has a different perspective, and yours is beautiful. I love that. That is fantastic.
Yeah, life is meant to be enjoyed and be an adventure. And why not write a story while you're in line at the grocery store? Because you never know what you might see.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yes, 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 yes. Phenomenal advice. Well, Mary Ellen, this has been a long time coming. Thank you so much for coming on the show here. For allowing all of us to hear your story, straight from you, to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing and the incredible year that you've had. It is truly, truly an honor to be able to talk to you like this and to have you on the podcast. So I just wanted to say thank you again.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This has been some fun. I really love talking to you.
Yes, could not agree more. Thank you again. A huge, huge thank you again to Mary Ellen for coming onto the show this week. I could not think of a better guest for this monumental 50th episode of the Saved as Draft podcast. All right, next up, let's talk about next week on Substack. Okay, so this coming week is packed. Tomorrow we've got a brand new power-up prompt, and since dark fantasy and cosmic horror are tied, Connor Mancuso himself has volunteered to write up the three elements. He's going to blend the two genres together, so I, for one, am insanely excited to see what he comes up with. Sunday marks the anniversary of my first year on Substack as well. I'll be posting an article recapping the top 10 moments from the last year, so keep an eye out for that. Tuesday is the release of Chapter 8 of The Order of the Pawn. I know a lot of you are still reeling from Chapter 7, and while I can't promise that Chapter 8 is going to be any easier, I can promise that I'll give you a glimpse of the hope that I'm known for in my stories. You will see by the end where I'm heading with all of this, and hopefully you'll like where it's going. So, yeah, big week to start off 2026, and that's all I've got for you this week, but I can't help but feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, wait, I think I remembered. Wandering prompt 7 1 0 2 2 6. Write a story or poem about the concept of liminal space. Set it wherever you'd like, but leverage the uncanny nature of liminality to create atmosphere and tension. 1,000 words or less. First to post a link in the comments of the episode wins. A second story will be chosen at random should others arise. Good luck. No, I thought I had it, but I still can't remember what it is. Oh well, I'm sure it'll come to me right after I publish the episode. My friends, thank you again for being here this week. Thank you for 50 incredible episodes of the Save Just Draft podcast and for making this show such a success in 2025. If you get the chance, a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platforms would mean the world to me, and it'll help others find the show as well. In the meantime, I'm wishing you all an amazing start to 2026, and I'll see you next week. This is Bradley Ramsey, signing off. Oh, that's what I forgot to add. The wandering prompt. Okay, I'll go back and toss it in somewhere in the episode. Unless... Wait, did I do it already?
Hey there, friend. You look lost and confused.
Oh, hey, Otis. No, I'm just struggling with the concept of linear time and how to reconcile cause and effect in a universe where time isn't necessarily linear.
Ah, sounds like just another day in Starlight Cove.